Did Trump demand that Zelensky hand over Donbas to Russia, unidentified drones now appearing in Spain, and a heist at the world's most famous museum worthy of a movie adaptation? These are just a few of the topics we'll cover on TSN today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. And we'll get started right after a short preview.
Russian drones are harassing the Sumy region around the clock.
At the moment, we've managed to knock them out, but it was pretty intense.
How does the 71st Brigade destroy camouflaged enemies and defend this section of the front? Russia's hybrid war against Europe.
If Ukraine agrees to a bad territorial settlement, other issues will be resolved without Kyiv's involvement. President Zelensky said this during a conversation with journalists following his visit to the United States. According to him, during the negotiations, it became clear, and I quote, "If Ukraine swallows what has been put on its plate, that is a bad territorial settlement, then they will try to resolve everything else without us." After Trump's conversation with Putin, the Americans once again began to use Kremlin talking points. For example, they relayed Moscow's concerns that if hostilities are frozen, Ukraine will start preparing a new offensive. And Special Representative Volker emphasized that Russia held a referendum in Donbas, and that this supposedly serves as an argument for Ukraine to give up this region. Zelensky called this verbatim a misleading impression that the Russians are instilling in the Americans. At the same time, Zelensky feels that there is a strong demand emerging in international negotiations to end the war, and in his traditional address, he once again assured that Moscow will not receive any gifts.
Almost every day now, I am communicating with leaders to ensure that we have a united position across Europe regarding pressure on Russia. The right kind of pressure. We will not give the aggressor anything as a gift. We will not forget anything they have done. We can clearly see that this Russia is a long-term threat.
In Antonivka, in the Kherson region, the Russians killed an elderly woman, reported the head of the regional military administration, Alexander Prokudin. The region is constantly under artillery fire, air bombs, and drone attacks. In the 3.5 years of full-scale war, the population of Kherson has decreased almost fivefold. The city is shrouded, everything is netted, the roads are dangerous, but children are still being born here and adults are fighting for the right to live. Natalia Nahornaya traveled to her favorite hero city to see how it is living now.
This is the entrance to the Kherson region. It's still more than 30 kilometers to the city itself, but even here FPV drones reach. Not often, but they hunt for cars driving on this road.
Here, there are their own traffic rules. For example, driving at 150 kilometers per hour or relying on the drone light. This traffic light here would more accurately be called a drone light. It signals that there are currently no drones in this area and you can drive through this tunnel. Dozens of kilometers of highway, now a tunnel under nets with burned out cars along the roadside. The most dangerous part of the highway has been protected from drones and airdropped munitions, but only part of the city is covered by nets. Only the most dangerous spots are protected, even though now enemy drones reach every district. It's still raining, so at least in the city we can walk instead of having to run. This is my first time at Freedom Square since air bombs hit the administration building. It hurts to see such a brave city so devastated in person. You definitely recognize this square, don't you? It was right here that the brave residents of the hero city of Kherson came out to stand up to the occupiers. And it was here that people rejoiced when the city was finally liberated. But now, after Russian air bombs and under a barrage of drones, this is what it looks like. We hear the sounds of artillery strikes, but the locals don't even flinch at the loud noises anymore. They even laugh at the shelling.
Oh, it's funny, really funny. Well,
what's so funny about it? Tell us.
Well, the shelling, and I'm still alive.
And they get upset if there isn't return fire at the enemy.
And I want to ask, why isn't there any counter-battery fire?
Despite all the dangers in Kherson, the streets are being cleaned, transport is running, stalls and shops are open, people are making coffee and even brewing beer. Passing through yet another tunnel of netting, we arrive at the local brewery to see Kherson's own Cat Mikola, the Kherson tradition. The journalists have arrived, so we have to film Cat Mikola. Dear Mikola, could you please tell us what the situation is like in Kherson? Mikola is eating well in Kherson. That's one thing I can say for sure. Marina, who is in charge here of both the cat and the business, says that drones are still affecting both sales and her work.
Right now, the current number of our valued customers has unfortunately dropped a little bit, primarily because there are significantly more drones flying all around this particular area. Sometimes you might not even be able to make it to your place of work because you have to constantly hide and take cover from time to time, which is quite inconvenient.
Customer Taras arrived at the brewery by bicycle.
A drone chased me several times, just one of them. It dropped something, wounded me, I was injured, but so what, I recovered. I keep riding my bike anyway. He wasted his ammunition for nothing.
More than 60,000 residents remain in the city, of whom 7,000 are children.
Small and cute.
Ms. Olena cannot afford to miss work. Her patients are newborns in intensive care.
At her own risk. I take the minibus. There are still minibuses running in the city. Then I get out and run along the trees so the drones can't see us.
In the children's ward, the windows are reinforced with sandbags and propped up with plywood. We've already reported how on New Year's Eve 2023, 700 windows here were blown out by rocket artillery. That's when we met the pediatric anesthesiologist Stanislav Vasilovich.
Currently, more than 20 children are born here each month. Many mothers are returning. For example, they become pregnant or are under observation in Mykolaiv or Lviv somewhere, but they themselves are from Kherson. Some of them come back home to give birth because they say it's better at home.
The hospital keeps separate statistics on children with mine and explosive injuries.
Since the beginning of the occupation, there have been 211 cases. Just in the last 2 weeks, 8 children. These are airstrikes, these are drones, these are hits on homes. These are stress reactions, mine and explosive injuries, limb amputations, head injuries, chest wounds.
An anesthesiologist tells a story that happened in the central district of the city. An enemy drone maimed 2 brothers at once.
2 brothers with mine and explosive injuries with lower limb amputations were evacuated to Kyiv. The mother, who is also pregnant, was injured, sustained mine and blast injuries, shrapnel wounds, but thank God the fetus is fine.
The largest gathering of people we see is near the church. The service is just ending. The service there is conducted in Russian. An American journalist, Zarina Zaporizhzhia, tries to explain to me in Ukrainian what Kherson is really like. She came from California to the Kherson region and fell in love with this city.
I speak poorly, but I do speak Ukrainian. I understand I can speak Russian. I don't want to, but I can. I speak Syriac perfectly.
Zarina is already filming her second documentary about Kherson, about the stories of people, and also about the shelling, to show it in different countries.
As you know, hunting people is constant madness. They're always hunting. They relentlessly chase innocent civilians. They aggressively go after vulnerable women, young children, and defenseless animals.
The American journalist insists that all this time she has been learning to understand the people of Kherson. Why is it so important for them to stay at home, just to spite the occupiers?
Why should they be allowed to be here but not me? I want to be here. I went to dance class just now, but the girls didn't come because it was raining. Not because of the shelling, because of the rain. So everything exists, and we need to do what we can to make sure it continues to exist.
From the hero city of Kherson, Natalia Nahornaya, Ihor Siri, and Vitaly Ovsyannikov. TSN 1+1.
The Russians have made significant advances in the Kharkiv region, in particular in Kupiansk and Vovchansk, according to analysts from the Deep State portal. Progress is also being recorded in the Zaporizhzhia and Donetsk regions, but in the Kramatorsk direction, the occupiers have gone quiet. They have not conducted offensive actions for almost 2 days. This is reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. However, the enemy forces are actively pressing in the Pokrovsk sector. There, just in the past day, our soldiers repelled 60 assaults. In particular, in the areas of the settlements of Shakhov, Volodymyrivka, Rodinske, Novoekonomikne, Chervony Lyman, and Mirnorod. Street fighting is already taking place in Pokrovsk. Recently, one of the Russian assault groups managed to break into the city and gain a foothold in the area of the railway station. This was reported by volunteer Denis Christo, also known as the Dutchman. According to him, the occupiers were later eliminated, but before that they managed to shoot at least 3 civilians and wound 1 woman. These crimes by the enemy were recorded by a Ukrainian drone. Despite significant losses in manpower, the enemy's tactics essentially has not changed in this direction, according to the military. The Russians operate in small infantry groups, try to break through even on motorcycles, and also attack with drones. The fields and tree lines in the Pokrovsk area are literally covered with fiber optic cables. A 36-year-old man was wounded by the Russians in the Polohivsky district of Zaporizhzhia. An FPV drone hit his car, and within a day, frontline settlements endured nearly 600 strikes from all types of weapons. In the Lozova district of Kharkiv region, a mother was wounded and her 2 children and husband suffered acute stress reactions. In the morning, the occupiers struck their house with a drone. In Kupiansk and Vovchansk, an elderly man was killed and another person was wounded. In the Chernihiv region, medical assistance was needed for a resident of the Semenivka community and in 3 other districts. After the shelling, more than 80,000 homes were left without power. 6 people were injured in the Donetsk region. The enemy shelled Kostiantynivka with artillery. 2 city residents were wounded and an apartment building was damaged. And in Drushkivka, Olekseyevo-Drushkivka and Staroraiske, there are victims as a result of drone attacks. Residents of Orenburg, Russia, are sharing footage of a fire at a gas processing plant. Locals report that this facility has caught fire for the 2nd time. The day before, on Sunday, it was already attacked by Ukrainian drones. At that time, one of the workshops was on fire. Today, information emerged that a key node of the plant was hit, the gas processing and purification unit. In addition to the huge pillar of fire, the video also captured the outlines of anti-drone structures built around the most valuable equipment at the facility. However, as the results show, they failed to protect them from Ukrainian drones. The Orenburg plant is one of the largest gas chemical complexes in the world. It is capable of processing over 37 billion cubic meters of gas per year. The local authorities have not commented on the emergency situation, and the plant has currently suspended operations. The first appearance of unidentified drones in Spain. The drones disrupted operations at Palma de Mallorca Airport. This is the 3rd largest airport in the country. The day before, it was shut down for at least half an hour, all because of reports from pilots. The crews of 6 different planes immediately reported the appearance of a drone. Security forces arrived at the scene of the incident, but were unable to locate the suspicious drone. Meanwhile, the airport had to reroute 8 flights. Eventually, flights resumed. Spain has joined a number of European countries where, in recent weeks, unidentified objects have appeared over airports or military bases. Russia is suspected in these incidents, and European countries are currently discussing how exactly to deal with drones and whether they should be shot down. The US president claims that he did not demand that the president of Ukraine completely give up Donbas to Russia in exchange for a truce with Putin. The Financial Times, citing sources, previously reported this during negotiations last Friday. Donald Trump demanded to give up the non-occupied parts of Donetsk and Luhansk regions and in return to receive some parts of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia, which are currently under occupation. Allegedly, this is a new proposal from Putin, which he voiced during a phone conversation last Thursday. According to Financial Times sources, Trump threatened that otherwise Putin would destroy all of Ukraine. However, as the article states, Volodymyr Zelensky was able to convince the White House host that the fighting should stop along the current front line. Although, according to the publication's sources, the atmosphere of the negotiations was extremely tense. Participants started shouting, Trump was constantly swearing, and even threw aside the front line maps that Zelensky had brought. At the same time, during a conversation with journalists on Sunday, the President of the United States denied this information. He contradicted it, saying that he immediately suggested stopping exactly at the current front line.
No, we never discussed this. We believe that they should simply stop at the current front line, where it runs now. Right now you have a front line. Otherwise it's very difficult to conduct negotiations. If you start saying you take this and we take that, a lot of different options arise. That's why I say they should just stop at the front line right now, go home, stop killing people, and that's it.
The leaders of the European Union are calling for increased pressure on Russia. This is how they are responding to another possible shift in Donald Trump's stance. The President of the United States is optimistic about ending the war in Ukraine and intends to discuss this with Putin in Budapest soon. The head of the Hungarian Foreign Ministry is flying to Washington tomorrow to discuss the details of the summit. The possible visit of the Russian president to EU territory is already causing dissatisfaction among many diplomats. How is Europe reacting? Our correspondent for Radio Liberty, Zoriana Stepanenko, will tell us about the latest news and what efforts are being made to end the war.
European leaders have rallied around Volodymyr Zelensky after what many media outlets are calling an unsuccessful meeting with the US president at the White House. The German chancellor also acknowledged that the visit did not go as the Ukrainian president had hoped. He says the trip demonstrated just how much Ukraine needs Europe's help. It is expected that at the end of this week, Zelensky will visit Brussels and meet in person with his counterparts, who will be gathering for their next summit. Zelensky is already coordinating positions with many of them. Macron called to discuss putting pressure on Russia. It is precisely this strategy that a number of European leaders, informed by the Ukrainian president about his talks in Washington, are calling for. The leader of Finland, known for his friendship with the American president, speaks about the need to apply Batifi, and this is exactly what Alexander Stubb believes. This is what the US president is trying to do. The Prime Minister of Poland is also calling for pressure on Russia. Amid media reports about possible calls from Zelensky to surrender Donbas to Putin, Tusk wrote that the target of pressure should not be the president of Ukraine.
None of us should pressure Zelensky when it comes to territorial concessions. We all need to put pressure on Russia to make it stop its aggression. The policy of appeasement has never been the path to a just and lasting peace.
Further steps in attempts to bring peace back to Ukraine were discussed today by top diplomats of the European Union countries. The Finnish foreign minister, commenting on the negotiations in Washington, said that Ukraine does not need Western help to surrender. The French minister was more cautious in his statements when asked the corresponding question. He voiced a less popular opinion nowadays that time is not on Russia's side.
Russia, or at least Putin's regime, is cornered militarily, politically, and economically. In 1,000 days, Russia has managed to capture only 1% of Ukraine's territory. The economy is degrading very rapidly under the pressure of the resources Russia is using to support its war against Ukraine.
The head of Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs also personally joined the meeting with his colleagues. He urged them to put pressure on Putin. The EU has a 19th package of sanctions on the table, but so far Slovakia continues to block it. Another decision in support of Ukraine is currently under discussion. The European Union is considering how to provide Ukraine with resources to continue its fight next year and in 2027. To this end, they propose using Russia's frozen assets. Hungary is against it. Belgium, where these assets are held, wants other countries to share the risks with it. France wants the money to ultimately be spent on weapons produced within the EU. Ukraine insists that the focus should be on urgent need. There is an understanding that progress on the agreement for a reparations loan to Ukraine is needed, Kaja Kallas said following the meeting. The diplomat believes that Putin will agree to negotiations if he is losing the war, so she called for creating the conditions for this to happen. From Brussels, Zoriana Stepanenko, Marek Hajduk, Radio Liberty. Especially for TSN, 1-1.
The truce in Gaza has been broken. The United States is trying to save the agreement between Israel and Hamas, which was violated the day before. Donald Trump insists that the agreement remains in force despite new clashes, and also said that Hamas, allegedly, is not involved in any violations. Instead, he blamed some rebels within the Palestinian region. Axios, citing its own sources, reports that on the eve, Washington held talks with Tel Aviv regarding the renewal of the ceasefire, which had been achieved through their mediation. The truce actually lasted for about a week. During this time, all living Israeli hostages and some of the bodies were returned, while in exchange, Palestinian prisoners were released. But the day before, according to the Israel Defense Forces, several Hamas militants emerged from a tunnel in the Rafah area and allegedly fired an anti-tank missile at an Israeli vehicle. In response, the IDF began launching airstrikes. The Israelis also closed all crossings into Gaza and halted the delivery of humanitarian aid. However, as local media later reported, they reversed this decision under American pressure. Washington, according to journalists, asked Tel Aviv to respond to provocations proportionally, but still with restraint. Due to the sensational robbery, the Louvre remains closed to visitors. The French police have not caught the perpetrators, but a few of the stolen jewels were found near the scene of the crime. The French tourists and the country's authorities still can't recover from everything that happened, and the press is calling it the most audacious crime of the century. Meanwhile, information was leaked to the press that the museum's alarm systems simply weren't working. Louvre employees themselves told journalists about the security lapses. Our own Oksana Tkachenko is following the developments of France's most high-profile case.
I was simply shocked. It seems that a museum like this should have had security that could have stopped something like this. The day after the brazen robbery, the Louvre in Paris is still closed to visitors. But that hasn't stopped the flow of tourists. Those who bought tickets months in advance have come at least to take a photo next to the famous museum. Some people can't hide their disappointment. I'm very sad because I've already seen the Louvre, but today is our last day here. Tomorrow we're heading to Italy, and we're also sad because this trip is with my sister. It was a gift from her. And I'm so sad that we won't be able to see the Louvre again.
It's overwhelming because I'm leaving the country in 2 days. That's why I've been planning this day for 2 or 3 months already. I bought the tickets more than a month ago, so it's sad.
For the French themselves, the robbery of the Louvre seemed like something out of a detective movie. The country's central museum was considered one of the most secure places.
The first reaction is shock. Shock because it's unexpected. The Louvre is supposed to be an impregnable place. It's France, and things like this rarely happen. It's truly shocking, outrageous. Those are exactly the words that come to mind first.
The museum staff do not hide their deep sense of shame, but they complain. Management had been informed about the security system's weaknesses a long time ago.
For many months, all security staff had been sending out warnings to draw attention to the vulnerabilities and problems we face every day. But the management completely ignored these warnings. The investigation will determine personal responsibility and will likely reveal a series of serious failures.
The robbery itself took place on Sunday between 9:30 and 9:40. The museum was already open to visitors. The perpetrators needed only 7 minutes to do what they came for. It is already known that there were 4 of them. Everything was planned down to the smallest detail. To get to the second floor of the Apollo Gallery, where the jewelry collection was kept, they used a truck with a lift parked near the Seine. These kinds of trucks are used all over Paris to deliver furniture to upper floors. Then, armed with power tools, the robbers easily cut through the glass and got inside. They managed to intimidate the staff with threats, so the employees immediately ran to call security and evacuate the visitors. But before the security guards could react, the criminals smashed the glass display cases, grabbed the jewelry, and escaped unhindered on scooters. What exactly was stolen has already spread through the press. These were pieces of jewelry that belonged to Napoleon and his nephew, Napoleon III. The robbers managed to take as many as 10 especially rare items encrusted with thousands of diamonds and other precious stones. It is impossible to estimate their value. Among them are the tiara and brooch of Empress Eugénie, the wife of Napoleon III, an emerald necklace and a pair of earrings belonging to Empress Marie-Louise, a tiara, necklace, and earring from the sapphire set of Queens Marie, Amélie, and Hortense, a reliquary brooch. 2 pieces of jewelry, including Empress Eugénie's crown, were found near the museum. Apparently it was dropped during the escape. Experts believe that the thieves will most likely dismantle the jewelry into separate pieces, because it is impossible to sell them whole without attracting attention. So far, the French police have not managed to catch the daring criminals. As many as 60 investigators are working on the case. The preliminary report showed that professionals were involved. They had prepared their robbery plan in advance and may have acted on orders from a criminal organization. Meanwhile, information about security gaps has leaked to the French media. It turned out that in the wing of the museum where the crime took place, there were no surveillance cameras. The local alarm system in the gallery was broken, and only the investigation will show whether it was deliberately disabled. The world press is already calling this the most daring robbery of the past 100 years. The last time something like this happened was in 1911, when an Italian nationalist stole Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece, the Mona Lisa, believing it to be Italy's cultural heritage. The painting was returned at that time. It's no surprise that for the French political establishment, which is already on the verge of calling early elections, this latest robbery has become yet another blow. Representatives of the right-wing forces, Marine Le Pen and the leader of the National Rally, Jordan Bardella, called this wounds on the soul of France and an unbearable humiliation. And the head of state, Emmanuel Macron, promised to return all the stolen valuables to the Louvre and to punish those responsible. The politician regards what happened as an encroachment on cultural heritage. Starting from January next year, Macron promised to launch the new Renaissance of the Louvre project, under which security measures there will be strengthened. Oksana Tkachenko, Natalia Kucherenko, TSN 1+.
Did you ever believe that such brazen robberies actually happen in real life and not just in movies, whether the criminals will be caught and whether the artifacts will be returned? After all, once even the Mona Lisa was stolen, but it was eventually found. Share all your thoughts about this in the comments to this episode on YouTube. And of course, give us a like and subscribe to the channel.